and happy Saturday. This is our October Spine of the Month book chat with Angie Kim, author of Happiness Falls. So we're waiting for everyone to join us and come on into the room. Hello. Angie's already here. Welcome, you all. It's our October Spine of the Month book chat with Angie Kim. I see Angie's already here, so let me get her in here. You guys are right on time. Okay, Angie, I'm going to request you to join. Maybe you can request to join, Angie, because I can't add you. Oh, there you go. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us. Hi,
Hi,
Angie.
hi, how are you? I'm so
I'm
happy to
good. How
be
are
here.
you?
I'm good.
Good. Can you guys hear us
Yay.
okay? This is, I've been looking forward to this conversation
I'm
all month.
Me too. I'm so excited.
I,
I'm in beautiful Sonoma, California,
I'm
and
so jealous.
I'm just like sitting here and just so excited to be talking to you.
This is awesome. So I have to say, I think was it 2019 when Miracle Creek came out?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you were our May Spine of the Month for Miracle Creek. And so I'm
Mm.
thrilled to have you back again for October Spine of the Month Happiness Falls. You guys, if you don't have a copy, I've pinned a link where you can get a copy. And this book is so wonderful, as with Miracle Creek. Um, and so I just want to do a brief introduction about you
Oh, thank
and have
you.
you and I'm going to have you do tell us a little bit about this book. We're not doing any
Yeah,
spoilers for anyone.
definitely.
So Angie Kim is a New York Times best-selling author. Congratulations on
Oh,
Miracle
yay!
Happiness Falls
Thank
being a New York Times bestseller.
you.
Happiness Falls was also a Good Morning America book pick. You moved from Seoul, Korea, to the suburbs of Baltimore, and when you were a preteen, you were a lawyer, which explains why these books are so awesome. Not only because you're like an awesome person and write really good thriller, mystery, human conditions. You have written for the New York Times Book Review, the Washington Post, Vogue, Glamour, and numerous literary journals. And as a former trial lawyer, you're the mother of three boys who have serious medical issues, which you highlight in your books. I think that's the one thing that I really love about your books is that I'm always learning something new, but also that you shine a light on a group of people who normally wouldn't have the light shined on them. And so I really, truly love that about your books.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And
And by
so
the way, am I breaking up by the way? Because
you just started to break up, but I mean, you were fine at the beginning. You're fine now. I can hear you.
okay, okay, good.
Yeah. And so if you want us to tell us a little bit about Happiness Falls, what
Yeah.
it's about. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, just ping me or just let me know if Wi-Fi cuts out because I'm using my INS Wi-Fi and I can
Okay.
just go ahead and go into LT and try that and see if
Okay.
that's better. But in any case, okay, so yes, Happiness Falls is a story about a family in crisis. It opens when the father of this biracial Korean American family goes missing. And the only person who might know what happened to the missing father is 14-year-old Eugene, who is the youngest of three kids in the family. And he cannot speak. He has a rare genetic condition called Angelman syndrome, as well as a dual diagnosis with autism. And so, in order to figure out what happened to the father and also to protect Eugene from the police, because they're very, suspicious about his potential role
Hmm.
in what could have happened to the father, as well as just sort of going through this really difficult time together, the family really needs to come together and learn to communicate and connect with one another.
Yeah. It's such
Yeah.
a great story. One thing I've noticed about you, Angie, and I've told you this before, like I think you have a thing with opening lines. So in Miracle Creek, you open up with my husband asked me to lie. And in this book, we didn't call the police right away. What is it about the opening line for you? Because you nail it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I love opening lines. I feel like they're so important for me because I have like a kind of a, I have attention issues, so I need to really, really get sucked in the first page of a book, or else I'm just not going to be able to really get into it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the first opening line is so important, not only to get the voice right, but also to sort of tell us a little bit about what the book is about. So for Miracle Creek, my husband asked me to lie. I actually didn't find that as the opening line until I was actually done writing the entire full first draft. And so I had a different first line. And then I was like, no, I feel like the themes are actually different from what I thought they were going to be when I went in.
Mm-hmm.
And because I do a lot of discovery as I write. Um, and so I I sort of did a lot of brainstorming and I came across that. Whereas for this story, I came across it, I think, within the first
Oh,
hour of sitting down
wow.
to actually write the first draft of it. So, I mean, I've been thinking about this family and this story for like a good 10 years before I even started, like actually trying to draft it. But when that day when I started like kind of sitting down to be like, okay, I'm going to be serious now. Like, I'm going to try to, you know, figure out what this first chapter is and what the opening is. That line came to me. We didn't call the police right away, and I knew immediately that that was going to be the first line. Not only because it hopefully does hook you in, but I
Mm-hmm.
think you can tell that the person who's saying that is Mia. She's 20 years
Yeah.
old. She is, the daughter. She's the oldest. She's one of the twins, who are older than Eugene, and she's very much a know-it-all. She's,
Yeah.
she's a college
She is.
student. And for those of you who have like kids around that age, as I do, I have two of them, you will kind of recognize right away,
Yeah.
like, wow, they think that they know everything. It's so interesting. And but one thing that struck me immediately is how much guilt she
Mm-hmm.
feels. There's so much regret in those lines. Like, we didn't call the police right away.
Right.
And wondering what could have been, what should have been, how much guilt she feels
Mm-hmm.
over her role in sort of making a lot of mistakes along the way. And that sets us up for the entire story where she's really hyper analyzing so much of what she did wrong and really being hard on herself. And so a lot of this book is actually a coming of age
Yeah.
story for her, and for Eugene, as
Mm-hmm.
much as, probably even more than a missing person mystery, I would say.
Yeah, it's more, I mean, it's like it's more than a mystery,
Yeah,
right? It's like
yeah.
it's a story inside of a story. It's definitely coming of age. And so you said that, 10 years ago you've started thinking about this. So what was the inspiration? And like I never knew about Angelman syndrome.
Yeah. So I started writing in my 40s. I think you and I have talked so many times. You actually, and also before we even go any further, can I just say how much I absolutely am so indebted to you, Jamise, for not only, your support of Miracle Creek, but also Happiness Falls as well. You were actually the moderator for my Northern Virginia launch, my hometown
Also,
launch. So thank you so much for doing that. We had so much fun
yeah,
afterward, going out with the bookseller for
it was so
a
much
little
fun.
prosecco and all
Yes.
that kind of stuff. It was really, really fun. Um, but in any case, yes. So you know this already, but for those of you who don't know, writing is actually my fifth career.
Yeah.
I started out as a litigator. I had a bunch of other careers, one of which was being a full-time stay-at-home mom. And so I have three boys who are all fine now, but they did have medical issues that were kind of like these medical mystery types of issues as babies and as toddlers. And so I'm very well versed in what that feels like as a
Mm-hmm.
mom. to sort of be a medical outsider and to sort of long for that normalcy. Like,
Yeah.
I just wish I could be one of those mothers who can just drop off their kids and not have to worry about what could happen and what, all of that sort of stuff. And so that's very much part of what drove me to start writing.
Hmm.
And one of the first stories I ever wrote when I started writing was a story about this
Oh,
family.
oh, wow.
Um, the Barton family in Mia's voice, although she was much younger back then. And it was about these twins who are going around this Korean graveyard outside Seoul with their little brother, and they feel very guilty because they feel like something, a little prank gone
Mm,
wrong that they played on their mother when she was pregnant with Eugene caused him to be a non-speaker, to not be able to speak. And so they feel a lot of guilt and shame in that, and so they are trying to do what they can to find his voice literally in the graveyard
yeah.
where this incident happened. And so it's a charming, kind of magical realism kind of story. And that was published in 2013. And it won a short story contest judged by Charles Baxter, who is somebody I admire greatly. And he talked about why he chose that as the winning story, being really Mia's voice and how funny she is and how weird and
Yeah.
quirky, but also like insightful and all of these really complimentary things that really resonated with me. And I think when somebody you admire says nice things, of course,
Yes.
like I think that probably, stayed with me because of that. But her voice just wouldn't leave me alone. This family just stayed with me. And
Hmm.
so I was just like, I know I have to come back to this daughter, to come back to Mia and her voice and this family. And so that's what I mean by that. That story has been marinating in the back of my mind. Um, I would do free writes about like various things that they did as children, backstory types of things, and a lot of which made their way into this
Hmm.
book once I found the right framework and the right through line. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, one thing that I really enjoyed about this book as well is you have footnotes
Yes.
at the. So I want to know that they're like streams of consciousness, right? They're not necessarily fact driven, and they're Mia's thoughts.
Yes.
And so can you talk about the story being told from her point of
Yeah.
view and why you included the footnotes in the story?
Yeah. Um, and so the footnotes are something that it just came from the very, very beginning. And I remember I sold this novel, unlike the first one, I sold it based on the first 60 pages, back in December of 2020.
Hmm.
And I remember talking to my editor, David Ebershoff at Hogarth about this and saying, what do you think about the footnotes? And he was like, I love them. Like, because it's just the way that her mind works. And you can see that, like, she has so much curiosity about how the world works.
Hmm.
And they're also kind of funny. Like sometimes she'll stop the narrative and be like, okay, let's stop for a second. Let me ask you a question. Do
Yeah.
you think I'm saying this? Do you think my mom likes this because she is a linguistics PhD who likes Noam Chomsky? Or do you think it's because, she is Asian and you sort of think of the thing that I'm describing as like one of these Kung Fu Panda type of Asian mysticism things, So she likes to sort of like interrogate you in a playful way. And, and, but I did still worry that because there are people, one of my first readers was my husband, who really doesn't like footnotes in fiction.
Hmm.
And so he was like, I'm just going to skip them. And I was like, oh, absolutely. You can totally skip them. And then that made me think, um, Mia's mom is always telling her, Mia, you're always going off into side tangents. Mia's mom really does not like that. She's
Right.
always telling her to focus. She's like, focus, Mia. And so um, Mia actually says to us on page 2, I think, if you're the kind of person like my mom, I want to be thoughtful about this. I want to be sensitive to you and your needs. So you can skip them. I promise.
I
You
love
won't
that.
miss out on anything,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, because people can. They really can either skip it or they can come back to it later. It's not mandatory at all, but
Hmm.
I have to confess that a lot of people have told me that the footnotes are actually their favorite part because they're funny and they're playful.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get to see things unfolding through her lens. It tells the dynamics of the family. She talks about her music. I mean, there's so much more that's gives to the story when you read the footnotes. But I love that you let people know if you don't want to read them, it doesn't impact the story.
No,
Your reading of the story. You're
no.
not missing anything, but you are. You really, I think you are.
You're
You need
you're
to read
missing
the footnote.
one layer,
Yeah.
but I think it's a layer that some people don't like. So what I always tell people
Mhm.
is, listen, there is a mystery element, of course, in both Miracle Creek and
Yes.
Happiness Falls. But the mystery element is really a Trojan horse from my perspective. It's a way to get in. And once I'm in there, I'm going to unleash other stories at you. So if the only thing you care about is the missing person
Mm.
mystery, then then you're gonna be then yeah, you're gonna be tempted to skip over a lot of the stuff that's in the book because that's not what the only thing that I'm interested in. I mean, of course, the family and I are interested in what happened to the father, but
Yes.
like, there's just so much more that we learn along the way about the dynamics of the family and, the racial dynamics
Yes.
and gender and language and how language impacts people's relationships in different ways. So hopefully my ideal reader is interested in all of those things,
Yes.
not just the mystery
I
element.
mean, I have to be honest, and I said this to you before. There were times when I was reading that I forgot that the dad was
Yeah,
missing,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
there's so much going on, but there's so many. I mean, you're dealing with the dad's white, mom's Korean,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so, of course, the whole thing when it first said we didn't call the police right away, you already know there's a racial dynamic with that. You're worried of how they're going to perceive the family, and Eugene. But there's so much more. I mean, let's talk about you blend like the real life into fiction. And I really want to talk about how, as a society, how we view communication and how it relates to Eugene. People thinking that if you're non-speaking, that you're not intelligent. And so I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah. Um, this is something that's so important to me, and you asked why this story, a
Hmm.
little earlier in the conversation. This is why. I really wanted to explore this dynamic more than anything else. And I remember my husband asked at one point, like, why are you obsessed with people who have trouble with communication in one way or the other? And because I explored that in Miracle Creek too. And I was like, I didn't really understand. I didn't know, but it was like kind of in the back of my mind. And then one day it just came to me when I was doing research about these non-speakers who are like Eugene, um, which is that it resonates with me in a powerful way because of what I went through as a middle schooler. I came here as an 11-year-old to the US from Korea. And
We lost you for a minute. We got you.
oh, am I back?
Yep, you're back. Because I want them
Okay.
to hear this part of the story. I
Yeah.
love this is my favorite.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I came here to the US as an 11-year-old in middle school, and I didn't speak any English. And so overnight, I went from feeling like a, pretty smart girl who, was doing well in school, all that kind of stuff, to someone who just became isolated and couldn't communicate at all, which is frustrating, of course. And I
Yes.
knew that I would be frustrated. But what I didn't expect is how much shame I would feel as a result of that. And that was the first time that it really dawned on me how much our society
Hmm.
equates, we equate oral fluency with intelligence. And I felt the same way. That assumption, that deep-seated assumption was in myself as well. And so, not speaking English, I felt like a pabo. I felt
Mhm.
like a stupid person. And it really did a number on me as far as my sense of security and competence, intelligence, confidence. All of these things were stripped away. And and then it actually got worse as I started to, understand English, but still couldn't speak it because I realized people were actually talking about me in front of me, making fun
Right.
of, you know, my intelligence, which had been my worst fear, and it was realized.
Mm.
And so it really, it took, and of course I learned English in, a couple years and all that kind of stuff. But it never, that insecurity never went away. And I still feel it even to this day, and that shame and that embarrassment. And so later, as a mom, when I found out about some of these children who are non-speakers and, with various ailments, cerebral palsy, autism, people that I knew from my HBOT experience, um, and then and I realized that some of them actually started working on these typing therapies or spelling therapies, where they actually started learning how to communicate by spelling out words on a letterboard, pointing to them one by one. Painstaking,
Mhm.
such a slow process. And when they were spelling, all these things that were coming out of them were so much more profound than I ever could have imagined. So we had all thought, oh, these kids, they don't really, they have like I documented IQs of something like 50 or 60 or something like that. But they were actually like doing history and really complicated, complex analyses of poems and literature and doing math and things that people thought that they weren't capable of. And you know this because you saw Jamise
Yeah.
during we were in conversation, you and I, at the Northern Virginia launch for
Yeah.
Happiness Falls with one of my creative writing students who's 25 years old, Ian, who was in conversation with us. And
Yes.
he used this spelling method to, sort of like communicate and to to ask questions and to answer them and to make comments about Happiness Falls and the inclusion of people like him in the story. And so yeah, so tell me what you think of that because the
I
first time
thought
I had, yeah, what? Yeah.
I just thought that, we were in conversation with N, and when finding out that he was an early reader, right? It was very impactful because, he was able to read the story early and see, how you did the inclusion and that you got it right and that you're talking about things that are important to his community and the people that support them.
Yeah.
And it's also a lot of knowledge for people that are not aware.
Yeah.
It kind of shines the light on, just because someone is nonverbal does not mean that they're not intelligent.
Yeah, yeah. And also that because somebody is non-speaking doesn't necessarily mean that they're nonverbal
Right.
either. Nonverbal meaning without words. So like just
Without
because you
words.
can't, yeah, just because you can't speak them doesn't mean that you don't have words inside your head.
Yeah.
It's just you just might lack a way of getting them out. So yeah, when I found out that people like Ian exist and that they use the spelling technology, methodology to communicate, it just kind of floored me. And I was like, okay, I need to find out more about this. And in finding out more about it, I realized that some of the people who benefit from this are these people with Angelman syndrome. And I was like, what is Angelman syndrome? And I looked it up and I got chills because um,
Yeah.
yeah, because Angelman syndrome is, like one of these things that I did not in this short story that I wrote 10 years ago. Eugene, I thought just had autism
Hmm.
and, meaning solely, that was his only diagnosis. And then but I had always seen him in my mind as having this beatific smile, being very happy, laughing a lot. And Amia says in the short story, like my family calls him the happiest baby in the world, like stuff like that. And he's also drawn to water unusually, and also has motor issues and all of these things. And when I looked up Angelman syndrome, it said people with Angelman syndrome have motor issues. They are, for the most part, they can't speak. And they also have these beatific smiles on their that are persistent, and they seem unusually happy. They have the outward appearance of being happy,
Right.
and they're also unusually drawn to water. And I was like, everything that I thought of for Eugene was in this sort of like, description of Angelman syndrome. And I was like, well, this is a gift from the writing gods, from the
Yeah.
universe. I'm gonna take it and realize that, he has Angelman syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the family because um, Eugene,
Hmm.
they're after the dad goes missing, they start to learn all these things about Eugene that they didn't realize.
Yes,
Kind of like you're in the home with someone, you see them every day, but then are you really seeing them? Because everybody's kind of doing
exactly.
their own thing.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about the dynamic of this family because you have the dad that has these secrets, and I want you to talk about the happiness quotient. You have the brother and the sister, and this is all going on during the pandemic. So the kids are home from
Yes.
college, and then the mom, right,
Yes.
being seen more than just the mom, right? There's a lot going on. I'm telling you guys, this story is it's so dynamic, and I love the audiobook, by the way, but there's so much going on and you forget that there is a mystery.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and and also the family, because I do think the missing person mystery is kind of a container
Hmm.
for all these other short stories about the family that I am exploring and telling, and they all do relate back. They do join up by the end. They all contain like little things that really are relevant to solving the mystery of what
Hmm.
happened to the dad, of course. But you need to actually go through all of those stories in order to
Yeah.
get those clues and those kernels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So, um, this family, so let's go to the dad who's
Yes.
missing. So one of the things that happens in the story that I hope makes it fun and also interesting and hopefully true to life is that I think when we live with each other sometimes, especially for kids, they don't see the parents as real people
Hmm.
sometimes. And that's definitely the case for somebody who's a little bit more self-involved, like Mia. And, so Mia um, does sort of like say, I admittedly I care more about my brothers, and she sort of sees them as much more fully involved people, fully evolved people than she does her mom and her dad. But one of the things that's interesting about these kinds of missing person mysteries is what you do manage to find out about people.
Hmm.
And the dad here, he's a stay-at-home dad. And so I think in that sense, the kids and even his wife like tended to see him more in a domestic context. So they thought of him as,
Hmm.
the person who takes care of us and who keeps track of everything and who drives us everywhere and takes care of our, schooling and all that kind of stuff. And then they're kind of shocked to find out all these things that they didn't know about him.
Hmm.
And I think that can happen, in that, especially with those of us who are sort of the more primary caretakers, who are the stay-at-home parent,
Hmm.
um, we kind of like we don't really reveal sometimes fully the things that are happening that are outside that domestic sphere. And then people are like, wow, you have a fully realized,
Yeah.
life and things like that that we didn't even know about. So that happens with this father. And one of the things that he is obsessed with is theories about happiness. And he has a theory called happiness quotient that the family learns about. And it's about the relativity of happiness, which is something that I also um, explored in Miracle Creek.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the idea that your happiness level isn't fixed, that it is not objective, and that it really, even the same experience can produce two different levels of happiness for two different people based on their expectations and their baseline. And so you can have the same experience, but you have to kind of divide it by your expectations and your baseline in order to get your happiness
Mm-hmm.
number. And the dad is very interested in quantifying happiness so that he can try to maximize it, especially for his children. And so that's one of the things that I think is a through line throughout the story. And then,
Yes.
of course, the family's like, wait a minute, is his being missing like a whole, is he doing that as an experiment? Could
Right.
that be? So you'll have to read to find out.
Yes. And let's talk about the twins, because one of the interesting, with all the things that are going on, you bring in, there's definitely a class element, but there's also a race element. And I thought we talked about this before, but I want you guys to hear this is, when they're on this field trip, and I just found it so, it's just like,
Mm.
it's something that people don't even realize that they're doing,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Um,
And
and let's,
also, yeah, and also I think a lot of people don't think about it for biracial people, especially in the same family. You think of like biracial people and you're like, oh yeah, they're like a perfect mix, like kind of in between the mom and the dad, whatever those races are, like
yes,
it's like if you blend those two colors like beautifully right in the middle. No, that's
it's,
not the way it
it's
works in
not.
real life,
And that's the part
you know?
that I chuckled on, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's just so blatant." So this is not a spoiler. Angie's going to talk about the kids,
No, not at all.
the twins
Yeah,
go on a field trip, and tell them what
yeah,
happens,
yeah.
Angie.
So what happens is that Mia and John are fraternal twins, yet they look very different. So Mia presents as Asian, and John presents as white. And so what happens with the two of them is they go on this field trip. I think they're like in fifth grade or something like that, so relatively like in elementary school. And the boys are acting like brats and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And this Smithsonian guide who is telling them about genetics and things. And she's sort of like, okay, so because John and Mia are kind of standing next to each other, and she's like telling them how, humans have so much of their genes in common, like 99 point whatever percent. And she says, but sometimes it's like your race and your gender doesn't even go into it. And she's like, so for example, pointing to Mia, you, a girl of um, Asian descent, might have more genes in common with, pointing to John, this boy of European descent. And, even though Mia, you look just like this other girl, pointing to somebody who is
Becky.
Vietnamese, yeah, Becky, then you guys actually, you might have more in common with this boy of European who's not even the same race as you. And the kids are all like, they're twins. You're being ridiculous. And this guide is like, wait, what? Could they possibly be really, what? And she's like completely confused because it didn't even occur to her that these two kids that look like they're different races
Are
could be
twins.
brother and sister. Yeah. And then and Mia talks about how she really tried hard in the moment to feel embarrassed for the guide
Mm-hmm.
rather than by the
Yes.
guide, but really failing. And her sort of saying, like in a mocking voice, well, yes, for the record, we are fraternal twins. We are biracial, and also I don't think I look anything like Becky, just because we're Asian.
Right.
you
I mean,
know?
she's Korean. You said Becky was Vietnamese or Japanese?
No, Vietnamese.
Vietnamese.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So just
yeah,
the
yeah,
assumption,
yeah.
and how people who walk around in the world, deal with these microaggressions like all the time. And I just
Yeah.
thought that was like a really, I actually marked that in the book because I was like, wow. Talk about Mia. Someone said she's a powerhouse, and she is. She is like 20. And so did her voice came to you first. And so how did you develop her? Because she is, she loves music. She talks about music. She is your typical 20-year-old. She, like you said, she
Yeah,
knows it all.
she does.
She's annoying because I was like, oh my God, this kid, right?
Yes.
And so talk a little bit about Mia.
Um, I love Mia so much. Even though she is a lot. I mean, there was, Miracle Creek was written from seven different perspectives, and it's third person, seven different perspectives, and there was such a freedom in that
Mm-hmm.
as a writer to sort of like be like, okay, I'm done with that scene or I'm done with that chapter. Let's move on to some other character and see what they're up to. Like I'm a little
Right.
tired of this person. And here I did not have that freedom. I was just in her head for like 3 years. And I was so tempted at the end of like certain sections or, chapters to be like, I so wish I could just escape to somebody who's simpler and like, more like just happy and, easygoing like John or maybe the mom or Eugene or something like that. Because Mia is a lot. She's
Mm-hmm.
very intense, and her guilt about her role in not calling the police right away, not finding the dad right away, all of that sort of stuff, that's a lot to deal with too.
Right.
Because of that guilt, she is going over sort of everything in her mind and being like, wait, so I'm telling you about this moment. This is what I said. Did I do the right thing? I don't know. Like, if only I hadn't done that, what could have happened, So there's a lot of that guilt, which is that intensity of emotion was a lot to deal with too. But she is just generally as a character, I think because she has been with me for about 10 years, she's developed all of these layers, as people do, right?
Right.
Like that I think if you just think of a character and you start writing right away, you might not get all of the things and the revelations that you do in the way that I got with Mia, that I was
Mm-hmm.
lucky enough to get with Mia. So, yeah, I knew that she was a musician right away. I knew that she had perfect pitch and, all of these things, and those were relevant to the short story that I wrote. Um, because there was a lot about finding Eugene's voice and sort of her role in as a musician, as a composer, and as a conductor that played into that as she's like evaluating different sounds that are emanating from like different parts of the gravesite and things like that. So I knew that about her right away. And then as I started thinking about her over the years, and whenever my kids were around, her age when I first wrote her, my two older kids, as they were growing older and going through their experiences, I would find myself every once in a while wondering like how, John and Mia are
Yeah.
doing,
Mm-hmm.
navigating the same things in high school and going to and applying to colleges and, writing the essays that you do and all of that sort of stuff. And then starting college and then being a total know-it-all
Yes.
and talking back to their parents
Mm-hmm.
and, all of those annoying things. And so it was really, really interesting. And I think she just became that kind of a complex person in my mind because she's been with me for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Angie, I mean, you had this phenomenal hit with Miracle Creek, okay? And so now you're coming back to write and bring us a new book, Happiness Falls. What was the pressure like for you for that? Because people always talk about sophomore slump and things of that nature, but you know, you come back and it's even more of a hit. I mean, it's like you knock it out the park both times.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice of you to say. So it was really hard because Miracle Creek, as you say, it was my debut.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not just my debut, but it was the first novel that I ever even tried to write. And so I actually had this sign over, like, right in front of me as I was writing, right above my computer screen that said, "This is not a novel." And I had that because I was trying to remind myself that, this is probably not going to be made into an actual book, because I had heard from so many people, your first book that you try to write, you actually end up putting away in the drawer, and then because that's your practice novel, and then you start writing your real novel. So to me, Miracle Creek was always going to be my practice novel. And,
Imagine that,
or,
your practice novel.
of
Yeah,
course I hoped that it wouldn't
yeah.
be, but so that was kind of the expectation. And I was giving myself the freedom to just do things like write a murder mystery, essentially, without having any idea how the fire did get started, or why
Hmm.
or how or any of that kind of stuff, or who said it. And doing things like having seven different voices, and which really I don't think most people would recommend for your first book, but I thought it was great, because if that's what I'm doing, is I'm practicing, then it's great to practice with seven different voices, right? And so I did all of those things, and then for this one, I remember I still had that sign up, and my husband came in, and one day, he's actually in this room with me, like over there, and he said, honey, I hate to tell you this, but it is a novel. Like, you are writing an actual novel. It has to be a novel because you signed a contract. There's an
Right.
editor. There's an editor waiting for it. You were paid like money, and he was like, so yeah, so it has to be a novel. So, and I was like, oh, this is such a good, but I didn't want to take it down. So I actually hand wrote in, this is not a missing person novel. And that to me was a reminder to myself that, to Mia, whose head I was inhabiting, to her, this was not a fun novel, right? That she's writing. This is a real life story. It's a confessional. It's a memoir of sorts that she
Hmm.
is writing. And so I wanted to remind myself of that, so that I wouldn't treat it as, oh, well, this is just something fun, and this is just a mystery. I mean, not to say that the mystery element isn't great, but or important, but just that that's not what, to Mia, is important about the writing down of the story. It's more of a confessional. And so all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was really, really hard. But on the other hand, the good thing about it was that my team, my agent and my editor, really did believe in this book, and they really believed in Mia. They loved her, and this father. And the other great thing is, my editor is just so wonderful and collaborative, and he's such an amazing novelist himself, David Evershoff, who has written The Danish Girl,
Hmm.
and The 19th Wife, and short story collections that are just beautiful. And so it was really wonderful being able to write and send him chunks whenever I needed advice. Like, what do you think? Do you think that this is, going in the right direction, that type of thing, and getting his feedback. So that was really, really wonderful. And then when it was like written, when it was done, just having his confidence and his belief in the story, and yeah, him basically saying, we're going to use the platform that you built on Miracle Creek, and he had no doubt whatsoever from the very beginning that this was going to kind of like launch me into a different level. and
Yeah.
and it's really, really wonderful having that kind of belief, because it's so hard, and there's so much imposter syndrome
Hmm.
that I think, people like me have. I'm so insecure anyway. So, this being my second novel, it was really, really hard. And I feel like that kind of a belief behind you is so necessary,
Yeah.
especially for people like me.
Yeah, I listen, the insecurities, you have no reason and whatsoever. I mean, two
Mm,
phenomenal books,
mm,
and just the way in which you teach in your writing is It's great. And I know that
Oh,
I always say when I pick up your book, I know that I'm going to learn something. I mean, even though I'm going, it's going on a journey, I know that I'm going to learn something. Before I let you go, just a little bit in the comments, someone asked, is there going to be, is it coming to screen? Any of your books coming to screen? I know you probably can't tell, but we truly hope that something will come to the TV screen or the movie screen. I can see a great miniseries for sure.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's actually great that you're asking that because I have a bunch of meetings in LA. I'm going to LA on Monday morning, and bunch of meetings. I'm really, really excited. So Miracle Creek is in, I don't know what the term is. I want to say it's in development, but I don't know if that's a term of art, meaning that it's
Oh,
being filmed right now or
oh
anything.
my
It's not the filming has not begun or anything like that, and we haven't announced it because we don't have the all the leads cast, but we do
God. Hmm.
have, but we're really, really excited. We have a great showrunner. We have a great couple of producers, and I've read the script for it's
How
a
did I
limited
not know
series.
this?
And oh, you did? I thought you did, and I
Maybe
thought
I
you were
did.
just being coy, Jamise. It's so funny. No, but it is. And I've read the script for the pilot episode, and I was just like, oh, by the end of it, it's so good. I think it's better than my book, but whatever, but I'm kind of like saying that like a proud grandmother or something, like I think it's even better. Yeah, but I love it. It's so amazing. So
Okay, you
I'm
guys
really,
heard
really
it here.
excited. I'm really, really excited. So hopefully we'll, now that it was on pause for a while because of the, all of the strikes and stuff.
Hmm.
And but hopefully that'll be underway soon. And then as far as Happiness Falls, yeah, so we are like going, there's an auction going on right now,
Oh my
even as we
gosh.
speak. So yeah, so really, really, I spoke to a bunch of people about it, um and meeting some more people this week coming up in LA. So I'm really, really excited about that as
That,
well.
that is awesome.
Oh,
Congratulations. That is
thank
so awesome.
you.
Oh my
Thank you.
goodness. It's like I'm so excited for you. But last thing, I mean, we already know what's next as far as these two books. So what are you working on if you can share? I mean, what's the next book? What are
Yeah,
we?
so the next book, I haven't been able to really get started yet. I started working on the sort of first chapter, but then but then it's just been really, really hard because, originally we thought Happiness Falls was going to come out like in November or so. So
Mhm.
like it would actually be coming out like right around now, I think. But then like various things happened, and so like the pub date kept on getting moved up and up and up. Like with GMA, it went from like
Mhm.
end of September to September 5, and then when Barnes and Noble picked it for their book club for September, then it needed to be on the shelves by September 1. So then all of a sudden it went from being like a late fall pub date, which is what we
Yeah.
were thinking, to being August 29th. And so everything got compressed. And I feel like I've just been so I had to drop everything and just focus on all the things that you have to do in order
Right.
to get things like that going. And then the tour has been, I'm still in the middle of
You're still
tour.
on tour?
And
Hmm.
yeah, I'm still on tour, and I won't be really home with the end of tour until like November 20th. So I'm gonna start trying to write a little like on for the rest of this month or so. But and so, and I'm telling you all that because I want to make sure that people realize, like, at least for me, until I actually really start working on something, I have no idea if that's the way that
What's
I'm
right?
describing it is
Hmm.
what it's going to be. But to me, this is going to be my next book is going to be more of a linked stories. So even though I do think that there is that linked stories element to Happiness Falls and Miracle Creek, um, it still is the same cast of characters and whatnot. I think for this next one, it's going to be more like Olive Kitteridge or something like that, or,
Oh
Jenny
yes.
Egan's Visit from Goon Squad, where, like people who are minor characters in one story are major characters in the next, and so on and so forth, that kind of thing. So, I think it's going to be linked stories, and I'm not going to say what the concept is because it's very
Yeah.
high concept,
Yep.
but dystopian.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I just
Yeah.
know, I know it's going to be great. And I know I said that was the last question, but you know, when we were in conversation for your Northern Virginia book, I did not get to ask you this question on stage, but
What?
with your, there's something about water with you because Miracle Creek and then Happiness Falls. And so what is it about water? I mean, I know, I think I saw that's where you like to write by water. So your titles all encompass water or
That's
some form.
true. Yes, I do love, you're right. I do love to write by water. So, and that's one of the reasons why I write in the closet at home because, because
Yes.
my house is not by water. So I'm just like, well, if I write in a room with a window, I'm gonna know that, I'm not by water. And so I lock myself up in this tiny windowless closet. And then I have this huge, like, big screen, thing where I'm playing this continuous video loop of the beach, of being on the beach. And so there is some, I do love the water, and that's like my favorite thing. It is true, but I sort of actually kind of fought Happiness Falls as a title. My original working title was Happiness Quotient,
Mm,
and they said, that's kind of like nonfiction-y, no, so can we do something else? And so we thought of Happiness Falls, and I really did love it because there are so many different meanings with
yes.
falls. It is
Mm-hmm.
a waterfall, but like happiness is falling and rising, ebbing
Mm-hmm.
and flowing, and Mia does have a hard fall when Eugene runs home on the first chapter and he pushes her down, and
Yes.
all these things. So many different things. But I remember saying, okay, I really do like it, but I'm a little wary of just what you said, Miracle Creek, Happiness Falls. Like,
Mm-hmm.
am I building an inadvertent brand here? What is my next book going to be called? Love Ocean or something? You know? And it was like, guys, no. And they were like, no, it's okay. And then I made peace with it because I do think that Miracle Creek and Happiness Falls are companion novels. They're,
Mm-hmm.
companion stories. One is about parenting, sacrifice. This is more about the children and siblings. Um, 7 POVs in the first one, one POV in the second, first person, that flip side of the same coin. So I sort of was like, okay, I'm okay with this weird parallel in the titles for these first two, but no more. My next title is going to be totally different.
Great.
Yeah,
It is
we'll
always a
see.
pleasure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a pleasure
Oh,
to chat with you and to support you. Love your books. Can't wait for the next one, and I can't wait to see all the good things that are coming to screen for both books. But
thank you
um,
so much.
of course,
And also, okay, you and I have been wanting to do like a wine, book thing forever. We have to, now that I'm in Sonoma right now, I'm getting ready to go out, wine tasting for the rest of the day.
I'm so jealous.
We have to do that
We are.
in in when we get back. But
Yeah.
also, I hope that you and others who might be in the DC area will join me. Do you know the Gibson, the literary cocktails thing that they
Yes.
do, that Chantal does?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we're gonna do that. I think it's December 16th. It's a Saturday in the middle of December. So we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna do that for Happiness Falls, and Chantal, who's an amazing mixologist, is going to take some passages from Happiness Falls and make cocktails that are inspired by
Yes, she
Happiness
does
Falls.
a great job.
Yes, and Loyalty Books is going to be there. So Hannah and Christine, all of those guys. So
I'll be
hopefully
there.
you'll come out. Oh,
I'll
good.
be
I can't wait.
there.
And
I won't be reeling it from this account. I'll be reeling it from Spines
yeah,
and
yeah,
Vines.
yeah.
Yeah. So just so
Absolutely.
folks will know for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take
Yay.
care. Enjoy
Thank
Sonoma.
you. I will. Bye.
Bye bye.